Joining us now to take us through the report, Dan Hueber, the general manager of the eponymously named Hueber Report. Dan, we thank you for Skyping in with us. And as we begin, what would you say are the most striking findings you came up with?
Thank you, of course, for having me on again here. But we had some interesting revelations on actually a couple reports released over the last few days. The biggest news, of course, came with the grain stocks, which is an inventory report, a quarterly report that was released yesterday, as well as some acreage numbers for what they estimate we planted this year. But if I step back just a little bit before that, last Friday, the USDA also released a quarterly hog and pig inventory number. And of course, in the prices of hogs, prices of pork at the retail end, of course, have bounced significantly this year. I mean, we're up over 15% over last year. A lot of that due to a disease problem in the hog industry. In fact, on that number, the numbers that were released there did indicate that we have the total pork number of hogs on feed, the total pork inventory out there is as low as it's been now since 2007. So partially you can see how we have this response higher in prices. Of course, the biggest impact has come from this PED virus that has impacted herds throughout the United States really over the last year, has had even a secondary outbreak, and still estimating we probably lost between 7 and 8 million head of hogs that would have come to market. So hence that's a lot of the rise in price. Now, the industry did respond by tending to feed animals a little bit longer, so weights have been coming in. So the actual reduction in the amount of pork around is not as severe as you might think, but nonetheless, it has pushed prices, like I say, higher about 15% here over year-ago levels.
Now, Mr. Hueber, in addition to the pork, we have a citrus problem here, so that's the citrus, I don't want to call it a cancer, but virus has really affected that. And also, we've just reported on extreme weather in the Midwest. Are all of these things going to cause food prices to continue to climb?
No, in fact, and again, you probably want to expand that out to California, where there's been a severe drought for the last 3 years. Definitely has had an impact on the dairy production out there and the cost to raise the dairy cows and, of course, produce a pound of milk. What's happened recently in the Midwest, particularly some of these very extreme amount of rain, it's got the market a little bit unsettled. But if anything, we're off to a great start. The reports that were issued yesterday really kind of pushed us over the edge as far as a sense of relief, I guess, for the markets. We've been living with a very tight balance of supply, particularly in the soybean market. The reports issued yesterday did indicate that we probably have a little bit more inventory around than was anticipated previously. And then, as much as anything, the acreage numbers, particularly for the soybean crop, were significantly higher than anybody really thought, and really took the market on a tumble. So actually, the grain markets have been trending lower now for the better part of 60 days. And ultimately, I think that's going to help out not only the not that that's going to come back and make your cereal cheaper tomorrow, but certainly does help the livestock industry relieve some of the pressure there as far as they'll tend to feed a little bit heavier weights, get a little more meat into production. So it's going to be a slow process, but I think we've probably turned the corner in many of these markets where we are starting to see a rebuilding of the herds. The poultry numbers are up already. We have seen a little more retention of heifers in the cattle slaughter numbers, which means people holding back inventory to start rebuilding herds. So it's going to be a slow, long rebuilding process, but I think we've probably turned the corner in many of these things. So the future months ahead would probably tend to say we're going to see prices start to ease back down. So.
Well, Dan, we've talked about weather, we've talked about grain and livestock. Let me ask you, though, about something else that could be affecting an inflationary spiral in terms of our grocery bills, and that's energy costs. Now, we see the unrest in Iraq, and it seems like every time we get together, there has to be at least an obligatory mention of what is going on in the Ukraine. Now with the news that the Keystone Pipeline, apparently our Canadian neighbors are going to go ahead and deal that oil straight to Asia, what does that portend in terms of energy cost, and does that contribute to higher commodity prices, higher prices at the stores?
Absolutely. The run-up we have seen already this summer has been probably more directly correlated to the unrest that was happening in the Middle East and the threat of the U.S. maybe becoming more deeply involved in Iraq. I would say now in the last week or two, we've seen that level off just a little bit. When you look at the longer term perspective, gosh, more and more oil being produced, and particularly out of those Bakken fields on a day-by-day basis. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote a report, just kind of reviewing, what some of the long-term projections are. I mean, you have many in the energy industry that think the United States is probably going to be energy independent, possibly by 2025, no later than 2035. So, I think the impacts are going to be temporary. You generally see a little boost in the price of energies anyway as we move into the summer months. We know that people are traveling a little bit more. But I think there's so many prices have caught up. I don't think we're going to see quite the normal amount of let's say vacation that we normally would, because the food prices, the energy prices have taken a little harder hit on the average budget. So here too, I think without seeing something truly, I don't want to use the word explode, but truly seeing something worse happen in the Iraqi situation, here again, I think we're probably at the peak, and we're going to tend to see prices start to ease back lower into the fall months.
Mr. Hueber, we're almost out of time, but I want to take a quick look at the markets. The S&P 500, NASDAQ wrapped up a 6th straight quarter of gains. Will this streak continue?
Well, I'm one that's feeling a little bit cautious about that. I mean, I think on the one side of the coin, as long as the Fed has a policy of cheap interest rates and they continue to pump 20, 30, 40 billion a month into the economy, it's hard not to be positive on the equity markets. But boy, you take that away, and I don't see what else up at these levels.
Dan Hueber, General Manager of the Hueber Report, we thank you for taking us through the ins and outs of commodities and groceries and energy and stocks, and we look forward to having you back again real soon.
Very good. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, so we got Dan's take. What's yours? Are prices going to continue to spike at the grocery store? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook, and our faces are coming right back.